Good evening. This is the October 9, 2013 meeting of the Finance Committee. It's approximately 7 o'clock, call to order. Our agenda tonight, we'll be going over the warrant articles for the October 29th special town meeting or fall town meeting. We have some transfers, then we'll go through our annual reorganization, and we'll review minutes from close to a year ago, and then adjourn. We've got 20-some-odd warrant articles to review. We're actually going to go just a little bit out of order. Our police chief is here tonight, and he's got an engagement that he's got to get to as soon as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a transfer that he's requesting, and then we're going to go directly to a warrant article involving the police station, and then we'll get the chief on his way. Chief, I know you're a little under the weather, so let me do the talking, which I hate to do, and we'll have Ed help out also. So the reserve account transfer, this is for the patrolman account, and amount requested $48,212.92. The present balance, this would be the salary reserve account, correct, Ed?
That is correct.
Okay. Present balance is $96,471.28. The reason for the request is a rate increase applied to the fiscal 2014, really to the salaries and wages per the bargaining agreement. Ed, can you just fill us in a little bit on this on the chief's behalf?
Sure. Just to bring the Finance Committee up to speed, we have 11 bargaining groups. We have 8 of the groups that have ratified their contracts. So we will be bringing in transfers up through town meeting. As you recall, we had put a set-aside amount in the salary and wage reserve account in anticipation of these contracts needed to be negotiated. This is one portion of that amount of money. So this is strictly for the patrolman's contract, year 1 of FY14.
Okay, and just a quick note on it, the balances that is shown, I'm looking at the second transfer, Ed. Those would be the balances in the salary wage reserve account?
No, those are the balances in their
budget?
In their budget.
Okay, just so we're clear on that. Okay, so we'll have a second transfer. Any questions? The second one is a similar one regarding Patrolman Quinn. I'll take questions on either one right now, just to... Kim?
Just to follow up on, is that 96,000 in the first one because you've encumbered the salaries for the whole year?
We've encumbered the salaries, and I believe there is positions that have been filled or are going to be filled.
Yeah,
We'll
both.
commit the remaining balance of those funds.
Okay.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion on this transfer?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Okay, the second transfer, also within the salary wage reserve account. This is for Patrolman Quinn. Amount requested $6,791.77. Same reasoning, and that account has a current balance of $170,849.26. Any questions on that? Do a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. All right, let's, we're going to jump into the warrant article relating to the police station. Chief, that's the only article you had, correct?
Yes, yes, that's true.
See if we can find that.
Article 8?
8? Okay. All right, Ed, can you kind of fill us in, just a quick background on the chief's behalf on what they're requesting?
This amount is being requested to replace all of the windows in the police department. I believe the chief has provided pictures of the condition of the windows. The $25,000 being requested is strictly for the windows themselves. The windows will be replaced by our facilities maintenance crew within DPW. If those windows were to be replaced by an outside vendor, it would be about an equal cost to install it as well. So we're saving about $25,000 by doing it in-house versus having a vendor install those for us.
I'll start the questions on this. There's a lot of sill damage going on, too. Is that part of what's being replaced? Would be the rot below the windows? Is there some
It would be, yeah, it would be the window sills themselves and the windows, both.
in the windows? Okay. I know I recently had work done on my house, and there's a lot of additional work outside of just replacing panes
Yeah,
of glasses.
It's significant.
Okay. That's fine. Questions, Kim?
What material are we replacing this wood with?
Yeah, vinyl windows.
And what about the
The casing?
casement around it? Are we using something that is not going to rot in
Yeah,
a period of time?
The Jim from the Facilities Maintenance Division at the Highway Department, he solicited some bids for window replacement. We have 3 different bids, they're ranging from $25,000 to as high as $29,700. And it's my understanding that it's going to be vinyl, which is, as he stated, and I would certainly concur with, is what should have been put in initially.
Yeah, I just would hate to see us putting more wood in there
Oh, absolutely.
when there's lots of materials.
How old is the building? We were guessing about 15 years?
13.
13 years old. I like my guess better just to justify this,
Yeah.
which is too bad. The work, the installation is going to be done by our guys, so there's certainly some sort of warranty on the windows themselves, and the rest is basically, as long as we've got our facilities department, we have some sort of, shall we say, internal warranty going on with the windows, correct?
I don't know what particular warranty comes with them, but I mean, it'd be just.
Standard warranty with the windows. Okay, that's fine. Look, I know you said we had prices ranged from 25 to 29 grand, and I'm pretty sure everyone on this board realizes that part of the reason why you're up here asking for money for new windows is because we went with lowest bidder, and we really were delivered not really the bill of goods that we wanted to last for a while. Are we being penny wise, pound foolish again by going with $25,000 for windows? I don't want to spend the extra money on it, but is there any real difference between the 25 grand and, say, a $29,000 bid?
All I can tell you is that he solicited the quotes from the different various vendors. I would assume that they're all relatively the same. I wouldn't expect that there'd be a wide difference in the quality or type of window.
Okay. Okay, my last question is as much a comment to Ed, and I guess because we've got plenty of issues going on with that building as we move into the CIP process. We really should be trying to avoid whatever surprises, and I'm calling this a surprise. The fact this is really a CIP article, and I know we need to address it right now. If we can take a really good look at that facility and see what kind of, I know we've done some scheduled maintenance, but if we take a good look at CIP relative to that building to see what needs to be done and addressed and can get onto our schedule. Thanks.
Sure, and we'll take that into consideration, Mr. Chairman. The problem being, a lot of these problems are hidden problems. Not that the windows aren't hidden, but a lot of things between the walls that an eye cannot detect, but maybe someone with some experience can detect them. We're limited as to, what individuals can make those assessments, at least that are employed by the town. But certainly, we do want to take a look at all our public buildings and try to identify those problems well in advance.
Okay, thanks, Ed. Jim, go ahead.
I just had a couple of questions. I was looking at the pictures, and usually when you get rot like that, is the rain just puddling on those sills, or is there some way they're talking about diverting the rain away from those so that?
Yeah,
sit
well,
there?
I guess when the building was built, if they initially put gutters on, that probably would have helped. But I think that's a direct result, what you see of the poor quality in the construction and it's the old you get what you pay for, low bid. And this is what we have 13 years later. You know, not to mention the other ongoing issues in the building, from the, you know, the everlasting HVAC system that we are constantly repairing, and mold that has now developed in one part of the building that we're working on rectifying right now.
So these replacement windows, you said they were going to be vinyl. Is it going to be also the sill and all of that's going to be vinyl?
That's my understanding, Jim.
Obviously, you don't want to use wood again
No.
if it's just going to do this. And I was just going to kind of reiterate the same thing. Usually something like this is a CIP item, and I don't know if there was any CIP monies put aside for the future for building issues.
There is CIP monies for building issues. I'm not sure whether or not windows were on the radar screen, quite honestly. I'd have to take a look. Actually, I do have the CIP. But as part of our review this year, the chief will do a walkthrough of the building and determine if there are any other items that should be a priority that are currently not on the CIP.
Yeah.
You know, you typically, I don't think would anticipate putting this on as a CIP item, only because nobody really anticipates windows rotting out to the point where they're almost falling out 13 years. I mean, they should last a heck of a lot longer than that.
Yeah, we may have to take a close look at it.
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah. And I think, getting back to my point, it may be worth contemplating bringing in a professional to do an evaluation, just to see if we've got to start scheduling some things relative to replacing a lot more things there that weren't planned on. So, Ed, if you could take that under advisement, even if we go through and
Right.
bring in a professional at some expense, maybe now sooner than later, and save some money that way. May not, but
Well, I don't
just
have
see what we
to
have.
at least remind the committee that there have been problems for years with the HVA system up there. The number of transfers
Oh, yeah.
have been done. There are plumbing issues up there, the window issues, so we actually have to have a review from top to bottom and determine what needs to be done in that building.
Okay.
Yeah, like just today, for example, the water was shut off for almost half the day in the building because the plumber was there working, and there was a valve he couldn't even get to turn, so we had to shut the water off from the entire building. It's just one thing after another.
Okay. Any other questions? This will be a warrant article, I guess, so what are our choices for votes on this, Sharon?
To recommend approval, not recommend, defer, or take no position.
Okay. Do we have a recommendation on this?
Recommendation, motion to recommend approval.
Second.
Okay. I guess we do a vote on that, right? Okay. Kim? Recommend? Ed? Jim, I recommend? Okay, great. So we'll recommend approval on that, and, yeah, we'll definitely keep this on the front burner through the CIP process, and hopefully at least address what we have going on over there on Oxford Street. Chief, I think that's all we have for you tonight.
Okay, thank you.
So I appreciate your time. I hope you feel better.
Thanks very much. I
You sound
appreciate
like hell, and have a good night.
it. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to get back to the agenda, and that would be I'll say the rest of the Fall Town Meeting warrant. I had a quick discussion with Ed, and what I've asked him to do, we've got 20-some-odd articles. If I'm asking him to give a quick overview on these articles, and we're going to get back to each one. We'll have to vote on each or most of them anyways. And we'll certainly bring up some questions, but I just thought it would be best for Ed to kind of do a very quick summary, and I'm going to read these in paraphrased in summary form also. So, Ed?
Okay, quick flyover, Mr. Chairman. When we concluded town meeting in May of 2013, we had about $197,000 unobligated at that point in time. We decided not to make any recommendation until the state budget became final. As a result of the state budget, we received an additional $122,000 in change above and beyond what we projected. We had a change in local receipts to the positive of about $35,000, given what we had estimated versus year-to-date actual for FY13. Our cherry sheet assessments, we actually estimated low by $13,000 versus the final state budget. In Article 2, we have a reduction of $284,000 due to healthcare reform changes we made. The total savings on an annual basis is about $560,000. The implementation of the new healthcare reform will take place effective January 1. That translates to about 6 months' worth of savings, or about $284,000. We also had a reduction in debt and interest of about $186,000 due to a refunding issue we had on some prior bonds at a higher interest rate. So if we total all those, the total available for appropriation is about $812,000, which is being addressed in this warrant. In addition to that, what is not being calculated as available is our new growth came in at about $185,000 above projected. As you recall, the financial policies suggest or recommends that we use that additional new growth as a continued effort in compressing the tax rate or giving the residential taxpayers some relief if the Board of Selectmen should continue their downward movement on the commercial industrial tax rate. So 185 is not being considered in this warrant. Now, getting back to Article 2, it makes adjustments to the general fund operating budget based upon a number of things that were not known in May, one being Bay Path Vocational School, an additional $73,000 assessment due to the final state numbers, as well as the transportation monies allocated to them. We have an increase in our salary and wage reserve account based upon the current contracts and some assumptions that we've made relative to the 11 unions that we're negotiating. Insurance and bonds came in higher by about $42,000, so there's an adjustment being made on that. We are recommending an additional $50,000 appropriation to snow and ice. I know the Finance Committee is well aware every year, at the end of the year, we're making transfers to address an ongoing deficit. So trying to realign snow and ice to minimize our exposure is a good thing. We are recommending $25,000 to our continued commitment for roadway reconstruction. And I believe that is, there's an adjustment to the Council on Aging Director's salary account as a result of going out 3 times for that position. We had to pay a competitive rate to those positions that are currently being advertised out there in the market. A slight adjustment in our relief and medical for veterans. We're running at a $68,000 clip. That's going to require an adjustment of about $18,000. So there's many pluses and minuses in there. That's basically a recap of Article 2. Article 3 is requesting $12,000 of additional Medicaid receipts based upon the amount we received in FY13. That would level fund that amount. School superintendent and school business manager feel confident that that level of receipts will be realized in FY14. Also, school-related article, $12,152 for school transportation costs for the homeless. I can tell you this amount has been received in fiscal 14. We received it in for FY13 in FY14. So it is coming in as an estimated receipt. Given that, we're allowed to appropriate based upon that excess that was not anticipated. Article 5 is an amendment to the CIP for efficient lighting upgrades in the Auburn High School. Article 6 is asking for an appropriation of $108,750 from general fund revenues for 4 iPad carts, 30 iPad carts per cart, so that would be 120 iPads from general fund revenues. Article 7 amends a prior CIP and amends it for another purpose for voting booths for the town clerk. You have just acted on Article 8 for $25,000 for replacement windows at Auburn Police Station. Article 9 amends CIP that would allow the fire department to replace a fire department service truck. Article 10 would appropriate $39,000 to the fire department for a shift command vehicle. Article 11 would appropriate $20,000 for the purposes of holding a hazardous waste day. Article 12 is requesting appropriation of 42, 37 of which would be funded through general fund revenues, 4,000 from retained earnings to purchase and install two-way radios. We're currently out of compliance with federal regulations for the bandwidth that's required to communicate operationally for the Department of DPW. Article 13 appropriates $7,096 for money we already received for reimbursement for Hurricane Irene that would purchase plow equipment for 2 DPW vehicles. Article 14 appropriates $22,000 from retained earnings for repairs to a jet vac truck at the sewer department. Article 15 appropriates $4,300. Actually, Article 15, 16, 17, 18 appropriates money from Cemetery Expendable Trust Perpetual Care for various equipment needs. Article 19 appropriates $20,000, a portion of which is coming from MEMA snow reimbursement, as well as MEMA flood relief, with the balance coming from general fund revenues, amount $4,214, for 2 Cirrus spreaders for our trucks for snow and ice purposes. It calibrates the amount of salt that it spreads on the roads, which translates to savings in snow and ice as well. In 20, at this point, we are recommending an appropriation of approximately $300,000. That would be the balance from those funds we have identified, not including the 185, to the stabilization account. Article 21 amends a prior CIP for library capital purposes. Article 22 appropriates $35,000 from overlay surplus, which has already been certified by the chief assessor, to purchase 2 inspectional vehicles to be used by our inspectional services division as well as our field assessing. Article 23 is a vote to accept Camden Drive. 24 would convey a parcel of land owned by the town to a butter on Rochdale and Burnett Street. And Article 25 is recommending to town meeting that they vote to allow the town manager to enter a long-term lease agreement for Camp Gleason for a period not to exceed 20 years.
Great. Thanks for the summary on that, and I promise I'm not going to read every word on this either. Initially, any questions, general questions before we get to the specific articles? Warrant
Just one question, Ed. So if all of these are voted on, what's the bottom line? Does that take up the entire $800,000?
It leaves $5,500. Doesn't consider, like I said, the 185 for new growth. So if the Board of Selectmen decide to maintain the current classification, we would be taxing at a rate of about 1.60. If we apply the 185 to that, it would bring it down closer to about 1%, out of a possible 2.5% allowed under Prop 2.5.
Any other questions or general comments? Okay. So let's get right to Article 2. Once again, I am not reading. All this is about 40, 50 transfers. What's the best way to do this? This does adjust the operating budget, several accounts. I actually had some questions. I think I'm going to open it that way on it. Ed, we're actually zeroing out a couple of accounts, including Packagug drainage, sewer Route 20, and drainage and paving, Packagug, sewer project Route 20. Can you talk to those a little bit?
Sure. First of all, I just want to let the members know, Article 2, bottom line, actually reduces the budget by $223,313. When we went to market back in January of 2013, we went out for a bond issue. And part of that bond issue, we rolled in some refunding bonds. These were bonds that we had a callable provision on. And we called them in because the savings that we would realize due to the interest rate change was significant. One of them saved approximately $140,000 over the remaining term of the bonds. The other one was about $40,000. So it was close to $200,000 of savings over the remaining term of the bonds. That was rolled into a larger bond issue. At the time, we had already submitted our budgets. So we are actually paying the debt and interest on a different issue, which rolled in those refunding bonds.
What was the change in interest rate, do you know offhand on a couple of them?
I think we were paying upwards of 5%, and we got a rate just shy of 2%, I think.
Okay,
I can get you that information.
that's fine. That's a significant change with these kind of dollars. Okay, and that leaves us, bottom line, operating budget-wise, is that the $51,377,717?
That is correct.
Okay. I'll open this up to questions. Like I said, I'm not going to read it. Kim, if you want to read it, is that, I didn't think so.
Eddie, what did you say that the savings is in this article?
It's a reduction from what was voted at the annual town meeting. It reduces that by $223,313.
That's something.
Thank you.
Any other questions on Article 2? And there's a lot of specifics in here. I know Ed touched on most of them. All right, do we have a recommendation on Article 2?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. And thanks for the summary on that, Ed. Appreciate that. Yeah,
Just one question.
yeah.
Ed, do we have a date on the classification? Is there a,
No date yet. We'd have to get to a town meeting first.
Gotta be
But
after
we're
town
probably looking early November-ish, mid-November-ish.
I'll be there.
You're always there. I'm going to be there, I think, this time, too. That's fine. Okay.
Is there any time you're going on vacation in November?
Invitation only?
Articles 3 through 6 are all sponsored by the Auburn School Committee. Dr. Brunellis here with what I'll call her posse. And I'm going to read a little bit of this verbatim just to get through. These are a little shorter. Article 3, to see if the town meeting will vote to amend Article 11 of the May 7, 2013 annual town meeting and appropriate an additional $12,457.23 for Medicaid receipts within the general fund reserves to the Auburn School Department operating budget for fiscal year 2014 to fund unanticipated services for significantly disabled special needs students and tuitions and transportation for outside placements of special needs students or adaptive equipment, or act on anything relative thereto. I believe this was originally on the town meeting warrant, and it got pulled late. I guess we were just waiting for confirmation that those funds were going to be coming
That
in.
would be the next one, Mr.
Oh, the next
Chairman.
one, okay.
Article 3 was originally voted $112,000.
Okay.
They received $12,000 more than that in
Oh.
FY, or the amount that was budgeted.
Okay,
So this just amends it to increase that 112 by sum of money, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I'll open that up to any questions. Do we have a recommendation?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Okay, Article 4. See if town meeting will vote to appropriate $12,152 from general fund revenues to the Auburn School Department operating budget for fiscal year 2014 to fund transportation costs for homeless and/or unanticipated transportation for other students to their educational programs by the school committee. Yeah, this is the one. My apologies. So this is the one that was originally on the town warrant and got pulled because those monies weren't quite clear that we were going to be receiving them.
I
at the
believe
time.
there was an expectation that the money would be received, but it wasn't confirmed. We now know that the money has been received. I think it was first week in July, Mary Ellen?
July 15th, I believe.
So this money has been recorded as a FY14 receipt, not expected, therefore available for supplemental appropriation.
Question, Kim?
How have we been paying, is this a new cost to the schools?
This cost here, typically had been running more around $1,000 or $1,200. This was an especially high year. We budget a sum of money and don't know from month to month or day to day even what our homeless student population will be. So we just had to make transfers within the budget that we had last school year to address it.
So is this the total amount you expect to expend, 12,000?
$12,000 was the amount that we expended last school year and was received by the town after the fiscal year closed. I don't have an accurate figure on what we'll expend this year because, as I said, the students' homelessness or housing situation is very precarious.
Any other questions or comments? Do we?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Article 5, to see if town meeting will vote to amend the CIP program as described in Article 4 of the May 7th, 2009 annual town meeting and repurpose the balance of funds of $36,000 originally appropriated to Julia Bancroft and $39,000 originally appropriated to Mary D. Stone, now to be used for the installation of energy-efficient lighting upgrades to the Auburn High School gymnasium and foyer, with work to be completed during the fall of 2013. I believe there was a school committee meeting that was televised. Facilities manager Joe Fahey actually did, I thought, a pretty straightforward explanation of what's going on. There's lights there that basically, I think at the time the high school was being built, they used whatever was the appropriate lighting at the time, and I don't even think those lights are available anymore. They've been
Correct. We actually
discontinued.
secured a small number of bulbs, but they're not producing the bulbs to replace them any longer.
And my further discussion with Mr. Fahey is, I think the energy efficiency, these are comfortably more expensive lights, but I guess the energy efficiency is exponentially greater
Correct.
than what's in there now, which will also reduce replacement costs and that kind of thing. And once again, this was on a televised school committee meeting that most of this information came out. Not that I'm advocating for this, Dr. Brunel, but just to kind of move this one
Doing a
along
good job,
anyways.
Mr. Hussey, thank you.
Any questions or comments on this? Kim?
The new middle school building will have lights that aren't going to have to be replaced within a few years of occupying the building.
Certainly, that would be the expectation. I will tell you, the building is being designed and built for energy efficiency, so I can certainly pass it along, but I would agree with your comment.
I was thinking the same thing. Jim?
Just a quick question, was there any type of a study done to see energy savings? I know that there's, the electrical companies do some studies that are out there that can actually project savings.
Sure. So, Mr. Fahey, we partnered with Mr. Burney and the town's administration on the Green Communities Act. So we were able to take advantage of some of those funds to upgrade lights in the high school already. The funds just didn't carry over to the gym and foyer area. So I would say, Mr. Burney, if you would
We have a bonus guest tonight, Mr. Byrne is joining us.
Good evening. The Guardian Energy Management Solutions, who is our Green Communities partner, did do a full audit of the high school. The gym was included. It was one of the projects that we explored, but the cost of the gym on top of the other costs tipped us over a point that made it not feasible to do as one package. So there was an energy efficiency audit done on it. I believe the lights, Mr. Fay, he's looking at, are LED lights.
Yeah.
So they have a proposed 20 to 40 year life. They have a use of energy that's somewhere in a quarter of the lights that are in there now. They're instant on, so they don't need to be left on all day, as the lights in the gym now would once you turn them on. They have a warm-up period. So there's a number of efficiencies that are built into these new lights.
Now, you said that they did a study on the rest of the school, but not the gymnasium?
No, the gymnasium was included.
Okay.
So we have proposed efficiency numbers. Clearly, once you get into it, sometimes it's a little bit more, sometimes it's a little bit less. It's all projected. So we do have those numbers, and it does show a significant savings. So there, I believe, and this is sort of off memory, but I think that the payback is in a 4 to 6 year period, somewhere in that range.
That's really what I was trying to get at.
Yeah.
What was the payback?
It has an approachable payback.
And I believe Mr. Fay had mentioned the same time frame to me regarding 4 or 5 years on that. Any other questions on, this would be Article 5.
Motion to recommend Article 5.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Article 6, to see if town meeting will vote to appropriate a sum of $108,750 from general fund revenues for the acquisition of 4 iPad carts with 30 iPads per cart, or a total of 120 iPads, and Bluetooth keyboards to align the district in preparation for the spring of 2014 Partnership for the Assessment of Readiness for College and Careers, or PARC, field test, and the 2014-2015 implementation of the PARC testing. Dr. Brunel, a brief explanation of this?
Sure. So we were recently notified in mid-September that students, 2 classes at Julie Bancroft, 2 classes at 2 grade levels at Packagug, grades 3 and 5, and 2 classes at 2 grade levels at Auburn Middle, grades 6 and 8, will participate in the field test. Only 2 of those, the students at Packagug, grades 3 and 5, will be taking this online. Now, the PARC assessment was designed as an online test to be given in that fashion. What they're realizing now is that some districts may not be ready to administer it in that fashion. They may not have the technology, the capacity to do so. So they're testing it in 2 ways, online and paper version. What this does, and I realize that there is some controversy around the PARC test, and there are some concerns that the school committee has voiced to both Senator Moore and Representative Frost, that if we want to put our students in the best position to take this high-stakes test, they should take it through the method that it was designed, which is electronically, multimedia. And we've shared that concern with them. What this will do here is allow our students to have not only the iPads, but the Bluetooth keyboards, which are required if iPads are used, to take this test. It is a field test. However, it will be a high-stakes test when and if it is determined to go forward. Now, we were recently notified by the commissioner that the Board of Education will take a vote on this in November. I would tell you that with the Commissioner of Education in Mass leading the PARC consortium, I would suspect it's quite likely that we will be going to PARC. At the very least, I know that we're going to be taking this field test come the spring, and I'm here to request this funding on behalf of the school committee and our students to be sure that they're positioned best to be able to successfully complete this test.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on this, Jim?
Well, I have a few questions. Since this is a state program, I guess my question would be, is the state providing any type of funding or grants for this type of large purchase, and are they doing this with other schools?
There have been questions asked around that issue. In fact, this summer at the superintendent's conference, Jack McCarthy from MSBA was there, and the question was posed. They do not currently have a program. There is certainly a lot of encouragement from superintendents and school committee members to institute such a program, but there is not one currently to do so.
Okay, my second question would be, obviously there's a budget for computers and expenditures in the school budget. Is this going to replace anything, or is this totally on its own?
This really is on its own. We do have a computer or technology replacement cycle that we use. This actually was unanticipated that we would need it for this spring. So I would suspect moving forward, we do have a one-to-one digital learning team that's working. We have an iPad pilot program working at 8th grade. So I anticipate in the future, we may have requests, whether they come through an adjustment in CIP or operational. But this really was something that we had not anticipated. So it's an addition to.
What grades did you say this was?
It's actually going to be administered in Auburn in grades 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8. 2 classes each.
And is there any other, well, I'm sure there is, but are they going to be used, the iPad's going to be used for any other educational purpose besides just this test?
Absolutely. We are fortunate to have one iPad cart in each of our elementary schools, but that does not suffice, obviously, in this regard. What we don't have currently is any of the Bluetooth keyboards. Generally, students use the touchpad, but that's not allowed for this test. So that's a new purchase, but we will certainly put these to excellent use.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Motion to recommend?
Actually, I've got a question before we have a second on that. Dr. Brunel, I know the Telegram had an article or two regarding the Worcester Public Schools and their involvement in Park. I didn't see through the article at all any mention about any dollar signs or anything. Do you have anything you might know or have heard regarding what kind of, shall we say, unfunded mandate? And I think I'm using our budget manager's words on that from the meeting I watched regarding Worcester's, let's just say, unfunded mandate to try to get up to speed technology-wise for this test.
I mean, fortunately, Auburn, we have been headed in this direction for some time. This actually amplifies it to a degree that we can't handle right now. But our goal would be that we'd make an adjustment. I can't give you an exact figure. If this goes as originally planned in the spring of 2015, we could potentially be testing students from grades 3 through 12. So we're looking at approximately 1,800 of our students. We're nowhere near that right now. I think we're at about 18% capacity to test them. So if I had to come up with a figure, Mr. Bouvier, yeah, if we needed, I would say easily $250,000 and likely more up closer, between $250,000 and $500,000, I would anticipate.
So you're suggesting that this unfunded mandate could double in the next year or so in terms of requests?
I believe that's possible.
Okay. Someone had mentioned to me, because I was talking on this, and I'm not an iPad person myself on it, are we getting any kind of discounts at all from either wholesale distributor or whatever for this? And I'm just kind of curious on how retail we're stuck with.
Yeah, Mr. Bouvier does look for the best pricing, but iPads are sold exclusively through Apple. So we bundle them whenever we can, but there really is not much of a savings to be realized.
10%.
Yeah.
Apple just doesn't provide that.
But any savings available, we certainly seek those.
Okay.
One other question.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
One question I have is, now usually with iPads, is some sort of a fee, monthly fee for connection-wise, or?
No.
We're not using the 3G service, which would be the piece that you would require a fee for. That would be if you were using it at home and needed to get internet through cellular service.
Okay,
We
so
have wireless in addition.
you have the wireless, and, okay, so there's no licensure involved. I did have another question. I'm all set.
Okay, Kim, you all set on that?
Oh, I got it.
Okay, Jim.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Is this test replacing MCAS, or is this on top of MCAS?
In all likelihood, if they move to this, and no formal decision's been made, but ultimately this would be replacing MCAS is the belief, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this? Okay. Now, I believe I had a discussion with Ed regarding this, and I believe the way the article is written, Dr. Brunel, is if for whatever reason funding comes through from the state or from, God forbid, from Apple or something like that, that the way the article is written, that if this turns into excess funds because you find other sources, that the article basically is very limited in terms of what else you may use the 108,750 for, correct?
Mr. Kesnow?
No, it can only be used for the purpose that it's voted for.
As voted for, okay. Well, that's fine.
Like any article, you
is-
can't transfer it.
Just, I wanted to kind of confirm that, I guess, folks, kind of watching at home on this. It is an unusual request. Actually, it sounds like it's not going to be unusual maybe the next year or two, unfortunately. That's fine. Are we actively looking for any kind of grants or rebates or whatever outside of just from Apple directly on this?
We regularly do, and we've had multiple meetings with them and looking at, leasing options and what would be the most cost-effective way to get these in our hands, in our students' hands. So
Okay.
we are investigating that.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, I think we've talked this one to death here. Well, hey, it's a lot of money, so it's important to talk this through and get some answers. So we've got Article 6 in front of us. Do we have a recommendation on this?
Motion recommend.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous, so voted, great.
If I may, Mr. Chair, if I could just introduce to the Finance Committee our new business manager, Mr. Peter Gray, who joined us starting in July. I don't believe I've formally introduced you to him, so I just wanted to take the opportunity and to do that now.
It's great, welcome aboard, and the fact that it's taken this long to get in front of our committee is probably a good sign for you. That's going to change, though.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure Peter and I had a chance to meet last week. It was great to make acquaintance with you. And thanks for your time, Dr. Brunel.
Absolutely.
Okay, Article 7, this is sponsored by the town clerk. To see if town meeting will vote to amend CIP Article 3 of the May 1st, 2012 annual town meeting as follows: delete the balance of $6,203 for voting booths and add same amount for storage shelving and file cabinets for the town clerk's office and vault. Any questions to Ed, who I think can probably speak to space and constraints and storage issues going on here?
Motion to recommend.
Have a second? Any comments? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. We've done Article 8. And let's see, Article 9, this is sponsored by the fire chief. See if town meeting will vote to amend Article 9 of the October Fall Town Meeting from 2011 as follows: delete the balance of $34,956 ambulance refurb, and to amend Article 3 of the May 7, 2013 annual town meeting as follows: delete the balance of $7,569.83, replace ambulance 1, and add $42,525.83 for replace fire department service truck in FY 2013. Ed, can you just explain what he's trying to do here?
Well, I think there was a savings relative to the purchase of the ambulance because of a remount of the existing box they used, so there was a significant savings there. And with a small balance, based upon the bids we received for a recent replacement of ambulance 1, for a total savings of 42. As I understand it, and the chief's explanation, if I can recall, the departmental service truck is a tire truck. I think the transmission has been replaced a number of times. The chassis is rusting out. It has a total of, between idle hours and road miles, about, chief estimates about 300 somewhat thousand miles, engine miles. So the truck, it needs to be retired. It's getting really tired.
Was this vehicle somewhere on the CIP future
Yes, it was on the
years?
CIP, I believe, for FY '15.
15?
Or 16, and by allowing the purchase to happen in FY '14, I know the chief has explained to you his problems with the tower and his intent to accelerate that. This would free up money in FY '15 and '16 to allow that purchase to move forward.
Okay. So in a way, we've got some found money from past CIPs, still taking care of a need, well, maybe a little bit early, but in essence, we're actually moving forward with some 34,000, 35,000 plus 7 that'll end up going towards the tower.
Right,
Under-
Article
under
9
some
and
future
Article 10 accelerates those purchases. They have been
Okay.
on the CIP.
Which is, yep. Kim?
Eddie, this says FY '13. Did we have an appropriation in this, in last year for this?
No, I mean, if it was in 13, there would have been an appropriation for that.
Or was there a separate appropriation already, or is that a typo and
It should be
FY
14.
14?
It should be FY '14. And we can correct that in the motion. Thank you for picking up on that.
Okay.
We'll double check with the chief on that.
Thank you, Kim. That's a nice catch. Getting back to the strategy, though, Ed, Articles 9 and 10 are basically freeing up some CIP monies to go towards the tower truck issue in the future, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Okay, regarding Article 9, any other questions or comments on this? Do I have a motion?
Motion to recommend.
And this will be amended to correct fiscal 2013 for the replaced fire department truck. Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thanks.
The motion
You all
is a
set with
little
that?
different. It takes out FY '13, so I don't know if it's his intent to purchase a model 2013 or whether the purchase will be made in 2013. So we'll check with the chief on that.
Okay. Article 10, to see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $39,770 from general fund revenues to replace the shift commander vehicle in the fire rescue department, or act on anything relative thereto. Now, this is also part of the strategy, Ed, regarding future CIP funds. As we, I think, had discussed offline, the replacement of this truck is also in the future CIP?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So believe the strategy,
We've had some
Yeah.
discussions about the tower that we will bring forward, but we're waiting till the CIP plan comes in for October.
right,
But we're thinking the purchase of a new tower truck is going to be upwards of about $1 million, $900,000 to $1 million. That being said, we probably would rely on a portion of that initial acquisition coming out of the stabilization account. To what extent, we don't know. We'd have to look at, the total plan and how it fits into the plan.
right, which would be an appropriate use for that as identified. So in this case anyways, we are taking really what we've got is some excess funds currently to take care of what's been identified as a future CIP need already, in terms of just kind of bringing that together for some
Correct.
partial funding for the tower.
And it's a good thing that we can purchase it outright because we're not borrowing those funds and we're not paying interest to borrow that money as
In the
well.
future, absolutely. Kim?
Eddie, can you tell me, what did we appropriate money for in FY '14 capital for them, CIP?
I gotta look at two because I gotta look at the borrow funds versus tax levy. So, capital.
I don't really care about the source of the funds, I just want to know
Okay.
what we're giving them for CIP.
In 14?
Because these should have been in the CIP.
A total of $248,689. $9,000 for a lease purchase on a fire prevention vehicle. Replace ambulance as part of a lease purchase of $50,000. Another replacement ambulance for $34,956. Now remember, all ambulance-related capital expense comes out of the ambulance proceeds, not general fund revenues. A lease purchase for a mini pumper, annual value of $66,777. And a heavy-duty rescue truck, also lease purchase $87,956. And I believe all of their capital was funded through tax levy because it's all lease purchase. We're not allowed to borrow money for leases. No tax levy money. I mean, all tax levy money, no bond proceeds for any capital for fire.
Is this the first year in the lease purchase programs for all of those vehicles?
No.
Or is it, what is brand new in 14? What's a brand new purchase?
Nothing.
Nothing.
So they're all older purchases?
Right. These are all existing lease payments.
You all set? Okay. Jim?
Just to clarify, was this vehicle on the radar?
Yes.
It was?
They both were.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
One in FY 15, I believe, one in FY 16. I've had that discussion with the chief.
Okay, so it's just being moved up forward?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Any other questions? Do we have a recommendation on Article 10?
Motion to recommend.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Excuse me. Article 11, see if town meeting will vote to appropriate $20,000 from general fund revenues to supplement previous appropriations to allow the Board of Health to conduct a household hazardous waste collection day in the spring of 2014. Comments, questions? Jim?
I have a question. I don't know if, Ed, you can answer it. You know, sometimes our trash collection company will contribute a little, or I know there's other companies out there that do specific types of hazardous waste, whether they've tried to, and I know we have a meeting with the recycling committee next week. I'm just kind of curious if some of this 20,000 could be possibly paid for by some of these companies latching on, or we always see this every year pretty much, and
My guess is the health director did reach out. I know we had a contractual obligation in the previous contract with Central Mass. And I think we already exercised that option in year one. So, knowing Andy, he probably reached out to see if Allied would participate. I can follow up on that, but I haven't heard anything that was committed in addition to what is being requested here.
And we have an additional comment from our special guest speaker, Adam.
I seem to be popping up everywhere tonight. I believe that what Ed has said is correct. Generally, Casella or Allied in the past has also donated either bins or non-monetary goods that reduce the cost to an extent. Additionally, you spoke about specific hazardous waste. In the spring, this past spring, we had an electronics take-back at minimal cost to the town, the cost of overtime, in partnership with Casella and MetTech Recycling. So the health department is reaching out to try and address special wastes. This would be I guess it's biannual, because we didn't have a hazardous waste take back in this past spring. So we try and do it every 2 years, and that's really sort of as far as we can go before we pull down streets and see people dumping their oil in the catch basins. And so while there is a cost to it, I think it has community and environmental benefits.
I know that they were looking at, this is like certain companies that will take in rugs and things like that, and they're very local too, that they could, you know.
Yeah, and a lot of those companies have locations and operate year-round, and they generally do so at a cost to the consumer. So oftentimes when the town holds a hazardous waste day like this, there's no cost to the residents. The town bears the cost through the tax levy, and you're actually paying less per unit. So it's sort of a double benefit.
Satisfied? Kim?
I have a question, not on this item specifically. Eddie, if we were to recommend all of the money articles here, did you say that what the balance of the total savings that you had outlined
Right.
before?
Provided 300,000 gets appropriated to stabilization, it would leave a balance of $5,578 and change.
I didn't want to rely on that at the risk of becoming a rubber stamp for all these money articles, because we don't rubber stamp.
Right, no, I
Darn it.
just,
I know.
I wanted to know whether
Yep.
we were eating into things that we should.
Yeah, and I believe normally you would be presenting, we end up with a basically balanced budget, assuming all articles are appropriated on a normal basis. Okay. Fair question, though. Any other questions or comments on Article 11? Do a recommendation?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Article 12, see if town meeting will vote to appropriate $41,000, of which $37,000 will be from general funds, to purchase and install two-way radios in DPW buildings, vehicles, town hall, and police dispatch area, and further to appropriate $4,000 from sewer retained earnings to purchase and install two-way radio systems in sewer vehicles, sewer office, and to relicense the N-Track alarm data channel. As Ed had said, I believe we are not currently in compliance with what would be probably some Homeland Security, FCC regulations regarding this.
Almost a year behind.
And further, I was told that this definitely does come with some penalties if we do not basically become compliant within a certain
Right.
period of time. Was
We have a little grace period, the government shut down, so.
glad we don't have this meeting next week, geez. Well, you never know.
Mr. Chairman, just as important as that, this presents a safety issue as well, doesn't it, Jeff?
Yes, it does.
There's some areas that individuals cannot communicate.
Yeah,
We're getting bleed over from other communities, and, yeah,
yeah.
we've got some radios that are probably 25, 30 years old, some of the vehicles.
It's going to be pretty heavy. Big ones. Go ahead, Jeff.
Through the chair, my biggest question on this is, was this on CIP somewhere in the future? It doesn't seem like something like this would just creep up and surprise us.
Good question.
We just got the final pricing, like within probably a month and a half ago. We've been working on it, but we didn't know which way the pricing was going, so we didn't want to put, an arbitrary number in CIP.
My biggest concern is if we're already a year off of compliance, we probably knew a couple of years ago that this was going to happen, and
Yeah, you're correct. But this is our third or fourth vendor we've been through, and we finally have final numbers.
is there any other surprises coming from FCC, or,
Not that I'm aware of.
might as well shoot the works.
Another unfunded mandate.
Well, they're good with that.
Ian,
That's why they shut down.
So I want to ask, are these radios separate from the emergency radios that the police and fire use, or is this all part of the same system?
It's basically part of the same system, just different frequencies. As far as the dispatch area, you have an area for, a fire radio, various police radios, and then you have the DPW radios, all within the console of dispatch. That's why they're included in this.
Thank you.
So technically, there could be fairly easy coordinated conversations between DPW and public safety anywhere in town when this is fully
Well,
implemented.
that's another thing too, is the new radios that we're installing, the ones that are being replaced, most of the existing radios are multi-channel, so we have capabilities of talking to fire. Not so much the police because of a different band, but all of the new radios that we're putting in are multiple channels. So we'll have Public Works, we'll have fire, probably a water district, and, you know, maybe a couple other surrounding towns that we may be called upon, you know, in case of a mutual aid situation.
Would this cover emergency management? We still have an emergency management.
I mean, it
area.
could. I mean, obviously, there's a good amount of these vehicles that would be used in a situation, you know, storm events and whatnot.
That's what I'm thinking of, something like that. Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Jim?
Just a follow-up question. So I am to assume that police and fire are already in compliance
That's
with
right.
this?
Yes.
So it's just DPW and sewer?
Good question. Any other questions, comments? Do we have a recommendation?
Motion to recommend.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. Also, see if town meeting, this is Article 13, will vote to appropriate $7,096 from the 2013 State Hurricane Irene account to purchase plow equipment for 2 DPW vehicles. Any questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
Motion to recommend.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Article 14, see if town meeting will vote to appropriate $22,000 from sewer retained earnings to replace a pump and perform repairs on the jet vac truck. Questions or comments?
Motion to recommend.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Article 15, see if town meeting will vote to appropriate $4,300 from the expendable trust cemetery perpetual care account to purchase a new roll-around canvas tent with tow package for the Department of Public Works, Parks, Recreation, and Cemetery. Any comments, questions?
Motion to recommend.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Article 16, see if town meeting will vote to appropriate $2,340 from the expendable trust cemetery perpetual care account to purchase a lowering device for the Department of Public Works, Parks, Recreation, and Cemetery. Questions?
Motion to recommend.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Sorry, we've got to take these individually. Guess we got to have Wayne figure out a way to write this up a little more compact somehow.
All of the above.
Yeah, we'll work on that. I'm going to talk to Wayne about that. Article 17, to see if town meeting will vote to appropriate $350. Let's think about that. From the expendable trust cemetery perpetual care account to purchase artificial greens for the Department of Public Works, Parks, Recreation, and Cemetery.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Mr.
Opposed?
Chairman, those are not putting greens, by the way.
Ooh, can we reconsider that? I believe we've all voted in favor of that. It's not specific. I'll have another conversation with Wayne about that. Now, Article 18, see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $500 from the expendable trust cemetery perpetual care account to purchase aluminum staging planks for the Department of Public Works, Parks, Recreation, and Cemetery. Questions? Comments?
Motion to recommend.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Okay. Article 19, see if town meeting will vote to appropriate $20,000, of which $13,612 will be from the October 2011 MEMA snowstorm, and $2,174 from the state 2012 flood relief account, and $4,214 from general fund revenues to purchase 2 Cirrus closed spreader control systems. I believe this would be the measured spreading devices. This for the new salt mixture that we're using now? Any questions or comments on that?
Question.
Question?
Question for Ed. I take it this closes out those three accounts?
Yes, it
right?
does.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Good question, by the way. Article 20, to see if the town, Ed, do you want us to hold on this because of the amount, or are we comfortable with that?
Actually, the motion is gonna read 300,000. If, for whatever reason, an article or two does not get recommended or passed by town meeting, we would ask that that be amended by that value.
Okay,
So right now, we are recommending $300,000. That's what the motion will read.
okay. In this article, at this point, are we earmarking any of this $300,000 to future tower expenditures? Are we being specific on any of this?
No, it's just
Okay.
gonna go on the stabilization. That determination will be made after review of at least the chief's submittal for FY '15. What he requests at this point in time, do not know. Where on that schedule that value will appear, I don't know. It could be anywhere within that 5-year
Okay.
period, so.
And I'm really only asking just to kind of cover us all, because I believe last year at this time, we had earmarked some stabilization funds as part of the purchase and development of the new middle school project.
Right.
So that was a specific, it's going in there, but it's not going to stay in there
Right,
relative
that was the
to.
intent, but subsequent to that, we actually had to vote it out.
Right, that's exactly why I wanted to make sure we're clear, we don't have this earmarked for anything at this point in time. Okay, Article 20, see if town meeting will vote to appropriate a recommended sum of $300,000 from the general fund revenues to the stabilization fund. Question, Ann.
Fred, so what is our stabilization balance right now? Is this what I see here, 2.3 million?
2.3.
All right, so has the money for the land for the middle school been taken out yet?
It's been transferred out.
Yes, all right. That's it, thank you.
Any other questions? Do we have a recommendation?
Motion to recommend.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Yep, go ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
Are we in compliance to what our financial plan says we should be in terms of stabilization balance? What we're putting in there? Was it specified in the plan?
I would have to review that. I think it's a percentage of the total operating budget. I think we are already there.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, it was a percentage, right?
Yeah, I think it was 5% of the total operating budget.
That's still a lot
Not to
of
say
money,
that we
though.
couldn't
That's a lot of money, though.
And especially if I have potentially identified a need against a portion of those funds.
5% though would be about 250 though, right? That
No, it'll
seems
be
like a
about
big number.
2.5 million because general fund operating budget is 51 million.
51 million,
So 5% is about
5%,
2.5.
yeah, that's right, okay.
I think that would get us there in FY '40.
Goal there, okay, gotcha. Okay. Article 21, see if town meeting will vote to amend Article 36 of the May 7, 2013 annual town meeting as follows. This is moving monies around within the library. This is actually sponsored by the Library Board of Trustees and the Library Director, between roof replacement, window and blind replacement, carpeting and flooring. We're taking money out of the resurface of the parking lot, and we're reducing some money for interior painting. I'm just going to leave this out for any questions on this. Jim?
I guess my question is about the parking lot, why are we moving the monies around, and does this create a situation where we're gonna need the money in the future?
Well, the reason we're moving it is to put more money into the roof account. And it was recommended to us that both the lower and the upper roof be done at one time, that it would be less expensive than getting all the equipment, plus the lower roof could be damaged when the upper roof was done. So we bundled it together, and the estimated amount is $182,000, which was more than we had originally anticipated. We are asking to up that to $200,000 just for contingencies. The bids will be open next week, unfortunately, not till next week.
Now, were these CIP items?
Yes. Actually, this would be the second amendment since it originally passed. Recently amended at the annual town meeting in last May. And it's a realignment based upon the cost of the roof as presently known right now.
So
That's priority number one.
Yes.
so the parking lot's just gonna be put off until, another fiscal year, and the roof
Right.
is being moved forward, and these items are still gonna remain in CIP for future years?
Yeah, correct.
And let's be clear that the CIP for the library was how long ago and how many library directors ago was that originally formulated? I know it's been adjusted, but it's good to see we're actually moving forward, and it sounds like a concrete plan, at least on the physical plant. Unfortunately, we just don't have the funds for the moment on the parking lot. But it's good to see this coming up and finally getting specific on this. That's good. Any other questions on this? Comments? Okay, so we've got do we have a recommendation?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Okay. Article 22, to see if town meeting will vote to appropriate $35,000 from the overlay surplus for the purchase, equipping, and marking of 2 vehicles for use in the execution of town business. And this is sponsored by the Director of Developmental and Inspectional Services and the town assessor. Ed, can you give us a little more detail on why you think having their own vehicles now makes sense, and how this will all be used, and how it had been handled?
Actually, I'll defer to the special
Guest speaker?
Hello. We had been using a found vehicle. There was a Bronco that had been mothballed, and we put some repair monies into. That has died the slow natural death of a 15-year-old vehicle that's been stored for several years, and got to the point where it would have been good money after bad to keep it going. What we did find in the operation of that vehicle was there were some minute savings. And we're talking about a vehicle that was getting 12 to 15 miles a gallon. We're looking at 2 compact cars, either a Chevy Sonic or a Ford Focus, both in the 30 to 38 miles per gallon, city or highway. With the mileage budget that my department has on a day-to-day basis, the cost of the vehicle and operation comes to a cash positive point for the town over the 10-year life expectancy of a new vehicle. So there's the positive financial impact, which I know that you folks can appreciate. Additionally,
And we'll expect to see that in your budget, by the way, Adam, so thank you very much for that info.
Well,
Hopefully we remember
So
that.
noted.
And it will be one vehicle split between 4 inspectors. So
Right.
it won't eliminate our mileage budget, but it will allow us to keep some control on it. But additionally, there's the perception and public safety impact. We're talking about a very visibly marked vehicle bearing blue plates, and I know that this is a specific concern for the assessing department, where the field assessor goes to a neighborhood on a random day, sometimes with an appointment to see people, sometimes she's in that area and that's the houses that she's assessing, and when you see a woman dressed in normal street clothes get out of an unmarked vehicle and start patrolling around a house, peeking around the fence over this, people get concerned. If they pull up in, we're hoping to have them be either hideous orange or some other easily identifiable color with seals on the side and blue plates. People can identify that it's a town official, and they can identify where they're from and hopefully get some additional information. So it's a combination of both financial and identification.
Good explanation. I guess I'll return my orange car that I just purchased.
Oh, I don't dislike orange. It just stands out in a crowd.
You can always get them like those snappy fluorescent vests.
We do have fluorescent jackets.
And actually, I assume you folks, when you're out, I'll say out on the streets going house to house, you've got some, at least some way to identify yourself too.
We do. There are town-issued identification cards, but when, there's a 75-year-old woman watching Maury, and she looks out the window, the card's only this big, so it's a little bit more difficult to see.
Okay. I have a question for you that Jim was going to ask, and that is, okay, so what if we didn't have $35,000 available to you this year because of just the way the budget rolled?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty close? What would happen in that case?
I think that we would have to assess what it was. If we could get a single car and share it, we would do that. Again, that presents the problem of, I have 4 inspectors in the Inspectional Services Department. There's an assessor. They have times when they're often out on the road at the same time. So it's a balancing act of who gets the car, who needs the car. If somebody's going out of town, we'd obviously prefer that they use their own vehicle and pay a little bit of mileage on that, whereas around town it's easier to use something that's identified. I believe that I put in a CIP request for the future for a vehicle. This may either reduce that or bolster it. I'll be honest, it would be beneficial if we had a second car in the Inspectional Services Department, so it would be something we would continue to pursue in the future. I guess if the money isn't there, we'll have to see what money is there and assess on how we can move forward. I don't have a canned answer for...
Yeah, once again, part of our job is to play devil's advocate here on this.
And I understand that.
And I believe, just to add to that, they're occasionally or frequently using their own vehicles, conducting their business
on
around
a
town.
daily
Let's underline
basis.
that too, right?
Yes.
Okay. Ed, you had a...
And Mr. Chairman, this money did become available as a direct result of the financial policies that we did implement. If you recall, the general fund was dependent upon a level of funding from overlay surplus on an annual basis that we are going to zero out over a 3-year period. That level of funding went from $200,000 to $130,000, so it's a savings of $70,000. This is approximately 50% of that. The policy did identify using those surplus funds not as part of a funding source in the operating budget, but for one-time capital purchases as well.
Right. And that was against my next point, that this is actually not coming from general fund revenues, coming from the overlay surplus. So, Adam, don't even think about asking for another one next year, all right? Especially if it's going to be orange. That's just not going to happen.
How about the year after?
Oh, maybe the year after. Questions, comments?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Adam, thank you.
You're welcome. I'll hang around because I think the next 2 are mine as well.
I'll tell you what, I know we normally don't act on road acceptances, but Article 23 is, see if town meeting will vote to accept Camden Drive as a public way. I believe we normally defer to the petitioner.
Motion to defer to the petitioner.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, so voted. Article 24, thank you. To see if town meeting will vote to convey a parcel of town-owned property located at the corner of Rochdale and Burnett Streets to a qualified abutter.
Motion to defer.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Last article, and I'll be abstaining on this one. I've got a little bit of a interest in this, so I'm going to abstain, Sharon, on this. Article 25, see if town meeting will vote to authorize the town manager to enter into a long-term lease agreement for Camp Gleason for a term not to exceed 20 years. Kim?
Who wants to lease Camp Gleason?
I know the Knights have expressed some interest in a lease of the facility. Not to say that it would go to the Knights. Certainly, we recognize that it's an asset of the town that's being underutilized. I think this offers an opportunity to utilize the facility and to have the leaseholder make some capital improvements that would not only benefit them, but it would benefit the town as well. We'd be looking for shared use of the facility. We currently, from time to time, use that facility for recreational purposes during daytime hours. We would continue to look to continue to do that. But this would have to go out, once authorized, we would have to bid this out. So it'd be an open competitive bid for a purpose to be determined by the town administration. So there's no guarantee that it's going to, anyone that has expressed interest in utilizing that facility to date. Certainly, we have to be a long-term lease because the leasee wouldn't be willing to put the capital improvements into the facility without knowing that they have a long-term vested interest in the building.
When this article goes to town meeting, when the motion goes, I don't have a problem with one of the service organizations within the community doing a long-term lease of a town building. I would have a problem with ABC Trucking Company or whatever. Long-term lease of a public building. And as a town meeting member, I'd want the RFP to restrict applicants to local service organizations or something like that. Will that be part of the motion, or will that be made clear? Can it be made part of the motion?
I guess it can be limited to only those, but I can tell you it is the intent of town administration to limit it to those type of organizations.
Okay, because I wouldn't want an RFP to go out and have some taxi company or whatever come in as the low or high bid, depending upon, I guess it would be the high bidder.
It would have to meet all the zoning requirements as well, and I'm not sure if that's a residential zone.
Yeah, I think it is a residential zone, but, you know, I am in a butter to that property, but regardless, it's a town building. I'd like to see an organization within the community have that opportunity rather than a business.
Jim?
Through the chair, Ed, that's something that the RFP would have to be voted on by the selectmen, right? Before it went out?
No, under the new charter. But I'm sure that the Board of Selectmen will have a play in the process, or at least be informed that this is the
RFPs
intent.
can be pretty specific.
Yeah, that's why I was asking if maybe a motion needed to be specific.
I don't know, then you have to start getting into the legal, how it's spelled out legally in a motion, and I think everybody, I assume everybody knows what's good and what's bad as far as who you want leasing it. I don't think it would be anybody's intent.
I would ask that for town meeting that you be prepared for
An
an
amendment?
amendment to that could potentially do that, and that there be determination by council that that would be
An appropriate amendment?
an appropriate amendment.
Okay, we can always defer on this,
Well, if they
There's
want
really
to-
no money
If they
in-
want to do, yeah.
because there's no money involved, we can just defer it to petitioner.
Yeah, just relative to any article that you can always find in it maybe a financial implication or not. We've had this discussion before. Certainly this, in my opinion, which I've got to abstain
Yep,
given
no, I
my involvement, but we certainly can defer on this, and I don't believe that's showing a lack of leadership on that at all, just given the way it's written at this point in time, so whatever the committee decides.
No, I think it's a great idea, right, but yeah, it does need to be, you know, when the time comes and the bid goes out, it just has to be properly worded, so we can keep out the riffraff, I guess.
Motion to defer to the petitioner?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain? Thank you. That'd be 3-2, 2 abstain? No?
You need four?
You need 4. Well, we'll deal with that, before town meeting. Yeah, no position at this time, and that can stand anyways. I think we've said our piece on that. All right, everybody, nice job on these articles. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair.
Jim?
I just had one comment. You know, as we were going through the budget process, we were looking at certain departments that had some need that we were hoping to be able to take care of with, like a supplemental budget through the fall meeting, town meeting. One off the top of my head was repair of, for fire equipment. I know that we did have some specific equipment that was either going to be replaced or moved around with CIP. Just a little disappointed that we've exhausted pretty much all the money with, the recommendations that we've made. I mean, we've also looked at the library and, maybe giving them a little more funding for, I think it was media was one of the ones we had talked about originally. But, I guess it's a moot point now, and, town meeting will make the ultimate decision on it, but just a little bit disappointed that with that much money available, that there was certain things that we could not fund.
Well, I know those priorities existed back when we were considering the budget for the annual town meeting, and certainly when the warrant is open, those same individuals had an opportunity to express that need once again. Those were not brought forward, so that's telling me that the need has been satisfied. I can tell you in terms of the fire chief, he did a number of transfers at year end to meet a number of equipment needs, whether it be repair, new equipment, that the finance committee supported. So I think that those transfers met whatever current needs he had at the time. So I think the fire chief is good at this point. Whether something crops up between now and the end of the fiscal year, I mean, we have no way of knowing if something should fail and something should be replaced, but we certainly keep an eye on that. Unfortunately, we don't have the ability to make corrections to the budget. This is the only time. Once that budget is locked down, the tax rate is set, there's no going back.
Yeah, I know when we were doing the original budget, there was some money left over at the end, but obviously not knowing where the state was going with their budget, it's difficult to earmark money that we don't even know that we're gonna have in the end. It's a balancing act, and I do understand that. It just, when you have that much money, it seems like it's a feeding frenzy. But,
Well, I can tell
I
you-
didn't see anything on here that was not necessary, so it's not like it was, let's
On a
shoot for the moon.
positive note, a lot of these appropriations are one-time appropriations, so it frees up that money for next year as well to
Yep.
address operational
No, I
needs.
agree,
Yeah.
I agree.
And it allows us to make one-time purchases, once again, that we don't have to incur any debt and interest cost on as well. So we're trying to save the taxpayers money in that regard as well.
I agree. I didn't see anything on this list that was not appropriate or anything like that. Like I said, going through the budget process, you're looking at it at that time, and things change quicker than you'd like.
Does the town charter allow the finance committee in a public forum to be more involved in what I would call the fall adjustments that we're making here relative to Articles 2 and 3, CIP and operating budget. We're involved in reviewing during the spring and the winter, but it seems to me there's still a fair amount of dollars being, Jim, feeding frenzy, sorry, it's really not. We have a conservative budget, so that works out well for us. But in terms of the Finance Committee being involved in the process, which to me is really pecking order of priorities going on once we know what the budget is final. And I'm not too sure that the charter really allows for us to participate in that or just be a reviewer at the end.
I think the Finance Committee is involved in that process because based upon the comments you make during your budget deliberations during or leading up to annual town meeting, that information is collected and it becomes part of the process for any reconsideration of the supplemental budget at the fall town meeting or any other special town meeting.
All right. So it tells me you watch us on TV. Good to hear that. Go ahead, Kim.
It's called reruns.
To that point, Kevin, we could actually have our own article. to
Yes.
amend.
That's what I was gonna ask, is that something that, I've never seen one in the time
I
I've been
haven't
here.
either. But, there are boards and committees that do sponsor warrant articles.
Right. And I'm
But I
sure we
mean,
could.
If the finance committee, because we have expressed, I agree with you, Jim, we've expressed concern for, we hear the DPW, police, fire, library, they all come in and make a very good pitch for why they need X, Y, or Z, that the administration isn't recommending at the time of the annual town meeting. And when it comes to the adjustment period, they look for, if the departments aren't looking for it, now, if they come to us in January or February saying, well, we didn't have enough for repairs, we didn't have enough for, we really needed that police officer that you didn't fund. And they're looking for transfers after. I mean, at this point, because they didn't ask for it, they asked for it in May, but they didn't ask for it in September.
Right. Right. And I guess too that there is a process that they'd be coming to us. We would need to add them to the agenda sometime before the warrants opened up. And we could, I guess, look at it and be supportive that way on it. I would think at that point, our thoughts would be known to administration on that, so there would be consideration on that.
Article 2, which is always the budget article at the annual town meeting, is sponsored by the Finance Committee, right?
Yeah.
Because the budget is the Finance Committee's budget.
Yes.
Yep.
But here it's, the amendment of the budget is by the town manager.
Because your recommendation, based upon your action, goes to the town meeting voters. You're making a recommendation to town meeting. The adjustments to the general fund operating budget are recommended by town administration because of some fluctuation, yeah.
Which is fine. I just, it would be, to Jim's point, saying, hey, look, we heard the cries and screams on certain things. And, yeah, you're right. I guess as a follow-up, it's incumbent on the directors of those departments to continue to scream and claw and do what they need to do to get that to Article 2 of a fall town meeting, understanding the process. Short of that, I'm sure they could come to us within, like I said, our normal agenda. We normally don't meet in the late summer, early fall, because we're not needed at this point in time. for public opinion, I guess. Jim?
And I do understand when you have this money, you can't rely on it every year, so, you know, budget items that are going to roll over every single year are difficult because, you know, the following year, then you really almost have to fund it, especially if you're talking about personnel or anything like that. So yes, I can understand the single item purchase that may have been on the horizon, and now you have a chance to get it maybe sooner than you thought you could. But, you know, it's tough listening to, you know, the departments come in and, you know, we know that there's going to be transfers later on for some of these items, and I guess that's just the way it goes. I mean, it's nothing new. Well, we do it every single year.
But then again, we certainly have some accomplishments here. We've added to the operating budget for snow and ice removal in those several accounts.
Absolutely.
And I think we've made great strides. So really, that's just, we're reducing the operating budget, yet at the same time, we're increasing some critical components that we're making transfers every year on. I call that an accomplishment.
And I think we all know, you know, once the budget is set in place, there are some circumstances where there are unforeseen expenditures that we're faced with. And that's the reason we rely on the contingency account. And quite honestly, the financial policies suggest that we increase that to a level that is maybe gives everyone more of a comfort level.
Yep.
So that's something, and we did that certainly with the salary and wage reserve account. So we did anticipate that. It does take pressure off the regular contingency account by adding to snow and ice. So indirectly, we're trying to offer some more flexibility in allowing departments to manage their unforeseen needs.
Which offers a great segue to our transfer regarding contingency transfer and reserves. Teed me up beautiful on that, absolutely. As we move along our agenda, and I don't mean to limit discussion here, we do have a request for an interdepartmental transfer from the DPW Sewer Division. Jeff Mitchell is here for this. Transfer from their contingency reserve account, which has a present balance of just under $18,000. Amount requested $900, transferred to the education account. This is within the DPW Sewer Division to cover expenditure for an unplanned out-of-state training opportunity. This kind of flies right to early in the year. We've got a budget adjustment or request already, although, as Jeff had explained to me earlier, to me, this is perfect use of your contingency fund available. Jeff, you want to step up, explain exactly what the opportunity is?
I believe it was either last year or the year before, we had purchased fleet maintenance software for the takeover of the fleet maintenance division. The software tracks preventive maintenance programs, warranty issues, generates work orders for the vehicles and whatnot. And when we purchased the software, the only training we could have had would be, I think it was Palm Springs or some nice warm climate, but expensive to get there. Normally, the training opportunities aren't in this area. This was the closest we had found, and I just barely got it on in time frame. This was in Baltimore, so it was within driving distance. We didn't have to pay for airfare and whatnot, just a hotel. So what we did is we pretty much depleted our regular education account. This was for fleet, but whereas the class itself, the tuition was paid out of the fleet education account, whereas the sewer department doesn't pay. We didn't transfer our money into fleet because of the enterprise. We figured we'd pay for the the travel expenses, tolls, gas, and hotel out of the sewer budget.
Okay. Any questions, Kim?
How many people,
One person.
has it already happened?
Yes. This is basically reimbursing our education account.
Okay. Any other questions?
Motion to recommend, approve, or motion to approve?
Second.
You sure about that?
Yes.
Okay. Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Jeff, thanks. All right, that concludes our transfers for this evening. Next on our agenda is reorganization. We do this every year. Sharon, I believe this is where you take over the meeting.
I'll accept nominations for chairman of the finance committee.
Recommend Kevin Hussey?
Second. Are there any other nominations?
Move to close nomination.
Second. All in favor? Aye. All in favor of Mr. Hussey?
Aye.
And take over now?
You can take over. It's
Swell.
official.
All right, I'll accept nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Ann Kavanaugh.
Second.
Is that an all in favor vote on this, Sharon? All in favor, is that any other nominations?
Close nomination?
Okay,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we take a vote on Ian as vice chair. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Thank you. We've been doing this several years, and we act like it's the first time. Maybe it's a good thing. And last off, we've got, are there any corrections or comments on the minutes from October 3, 2012 and October 23, 2012? Okay, that's fine. Any other comments or anything? I don't believe we have a need to meet until town meeting. Ann?
Yeah, question, Fred, could you provide us with a breakdown or the documents, supporting documents for free cash?
Sure, we'll be
Thank
happy
you.
to do so.
Crazy. Anything else? Any other comments?
Are we going to meet the night of town meeting?
Yeah, why don't we plan a meeting, half an hour? Is it a 7:30 start or a 7 o'clock? So it's 6:30, we'll grab our usual room. That's Tuesday, the 29th?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we do have a number of ratified contracts, so a number of transfers will be required in order to meet those contractual obligations. So they're all coming together very quickly. So we may have a number of transfers for you the night of town meeting, unless the committee wishes to meet prior to then.
How many transfers do you think there'll be? Obviously, they're for the same reason.
Well, we have to bring transfers forward for fire, police superiors, and a few others that may be ratified prior to town meeting.
I'll leave it up to the board. Is half an hour enough time? Because we, depending on our level of quorum, we may or may not be able to.
Transfers will all be coming out of the salary and wage reserve?
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, pretty generic.
I don't
have any-
that we have a need to.
I can,
There's no open
If it's just
warrant
funding a
issues.
ratified contract.
yeah. Yeah, I can talk pretty fast, we know that. So half an hour,
Bringing
maybe,
them in the night of town meeting?
or what you have at that point in time, hopefully all of them. Yeah, that's fine. There's no reason for us to pull a meeting just to do that. Anything else? That's great. Have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, so voted. Thank you.